What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zeph Wargames, and today I'm bringing you part 2 of our new series, and that is Yu-Gi-Oh 101. Now this week, thanks to a lot of comments on the previous video as well, I am going to bring you a short video on how to build a deck from scratch 101. So what do you need to know to build a deck from scratch? Is there any kind of tips or tricks? Is there any kind of direct route? And I'll also talk about the other alternatives that you can do in order to help build a competitive deck, a fun deck, or any type of deck that you are looking to put together to play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! With that said and done, please smash the like button, hit the notification bell, and subscribe so you do not miss out on anything more. Again, please show your appreciation for this type of video, and I'll be more than happy to do more of them. If you smash the like button and get at least 50 likes, I will bring you another video, being part 3, where we will talk about how to test your deck and how you get to know the ins and outs of an individual deck once you've built it. If you haven't seen part 1, which relies about side decks, go check that out on our channel as well. Now, let's get started now. With this one, I'm going to take you through a short, sweet story where I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! So when I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! It was around Duelist Alliance time. Now, this was way before. So when I finished off during like Duelist Kingdom time. So I had just got into GX. So I just knew about like Heroes, Fusion Summon and stuff like that. But I never knew about Synchros, XYZs, Pendulums. So I'd come back at the dawn of Pendulum. So literally, Duelist Alliance had just come out. The introduction of Shaddolls, Satellarknights, Burning Abyss, Yang Zings, the whole 9 yards. I started watching anime again, and that made me want to put a deck together. Now, the way I started out, without even knowing about Yu-Gi Tubers or anything like that, I went and bought a Utopia deck online, went to my first locals with a 60 card pre-built deck, and got trashed. Now, I didn't know a lot about the deck. I was kind of like, this looks cool, I'm going to put it together, let's see how it goes. After that, I started to learn and evolve and kind of understand that decks were built with archetypes, decks kind of synergized with each other. Decks did a lot more than when I previously played, where it was like, okay, normal summon a monster, set a trap, pass. Now I was in the realm of normal summon, special summon, XYZ, special summon, mill cards, special summon, synchro summon, special summon, synchro summon, get what? I've just lost? Like, I was so new to this. So I've been in the position that most of you are going to be in. And even if you are a competitive builder, moving forward, as you can see, I do put decks together as well. Joe helps me out a lot. I've got a team that help me out as well. They all provide kind of like input into the way the decks are built. But then I also put decks together on my own. I do try to put like spicy text in. And what you kind of need to know to do stuff like that is you need to understand how a particular deck works and how it kind of operates. And there are a lot of testing procedures to do with it. So that brings me on to my first point. The first point is, how do you build a structure, or how do you build a deck from scratch? You have a couple of options. So we'll go over the base options first, and then I'll talk to you right towards the end of how you put it together from scratch with no knowledge whatsoever. So starting off, one of the best places to or the best ways to build a deck together is buying a structure deck. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Have got a lot better with their structure decks right now, that the majority of them come with some incredibly good reprints, not to mention they are near enough ready to play. If you buy 3 versions of the structure deck and put them together, put it into a 40 card deck, you then have an ability to compete. Now, you look at stuff like Salamangreats, Shaddolls, and also, of course, Monarchs, alongside stuff like Sacred Beasts as well. If you got 3 structure decks together, you could put them together. Now, keep in mind, by doing so, it's not always that simple, because you've got to know what cards to cut, what cards are useless, what cards are useful, what do you want at 3s, what do you want at 2s, and mixing around with your ratios. Now, before I continue on to this, just so you know, as a quick breakdown of how it works, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck is comprised of 40 cards, monsters, spells, and traps, or it can be up to a maximum of 60 cards. So you can play anywhere between that region of 40 cards to 60 cards in your Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck. Now, the reason most people aim for a 40 card deck is because it is the most chance of drawing the cards you need. So imagine if you want to draw a 3 of from your deck of 40, you've got a lot more chance of doing so than if you've got it in a deck of 60. Now, the most decks of 60 cards or above is purely because they've put loads of engines in, or they have the ability to either search a lot, draw a lot, or mill a lot. And that's kind of the way that the deck kind of operates between 40 to 60 cards. You do see the odd times where people put a deck together of 42 cards. 9 times out of 10, that comes down to a personal preference where there's a card in there that doesn't necessarily need to be in there, but they kind of want it in there anyway because it's a card that works for them. That's the other thing that I will say as well, is no single deck is always going to be the same. It will always be played differently. It might always be built differently. There'll be little tech cards that you put in because it works for your particular play style. So leading on to that, don't always net deck. Don't think if I buy the best cards, if I put that exact build together because it won that one event, you're going to start winning all your events. Keep in mind there is luck based in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's different environments, different play styles, and sometimes you might put that deck together and it just doesn't melt, it just doesn't feel right when you're playing it. So going back, structure decks, that's the first place you can start. Buy a structure deck, put it together, test it, see how it goes. That's one route without even looking at any Yu-Gi tubers, without even looking anywhere else. You just put the deck together, let's play it. Now, if you're trying to put 3 structure decks together, what you've got to kind of look at is you do have to look what synergizes well together. What is your main win con? What is the boss cards? And by that we mean, so for example, if you look at Dinos, their boss card is Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Their utility card is Overraptor and Miscellaneous. Now, you're not going to want them in your deck at any less than 3. They have to be at 3. You want them consistently, you always want to see them. UCT is 2 because it is a big level monster that you actually search on a consistent basis. You don't need it at 3 clogging down your hand. So that's kind of how you can just juxtaposition between the 2 cards and how you want to kind of operate your deck going, right, okay, I want 3 of this, I want 2 of that, I want 1 of that. Not to mention the ban list actually helps you do that as well. Now, number 2, the other way that you can help build a deck is exactly like I mentioned. You can net deck. You can go online, you can look at loads of YouTuber videos, you can go, right, okay, what do they all have in common? Right, they all play this card at 3 in every single one of them. I'm going to put those 3 together, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, done. So that's another way of doing it, is you can look at YouTubers' videos, and keep in mind, from my personal opinion, no YouTuber video or no Yu-Gi-Oh deck online should ever be net decked unless you're doing it to learn the deck. So I honestly wouldn't net deck a deck, take it to your locals and try and play it, because sometimes there are personal techs within that deck that just don't work well for you. Always try and test the deck first. Me, I'm a physical tester, so I like to actually have the cards in my hand to test. Some people play online. But that will be in our testing video that will come out after this if this video hits 50 likes. So show the appreciation and get it going. Now, of course, the most important part of this entire video is how do you build a deck from scratch? How do you go, right, okay, I really like Performage Damage Juggler. This is the first card that's to my left-hand side. How do I build a Performage Juggler deck? Right, well, straight away, the best thing you need to do is you need to do a bit of research. You need to know what cards operate with Damage Juggler. Now, if you wanted to play a Performage deck, then you want to be researching and looking at Performage cards. Now, I'm not saying go out straight away and buy all the cards, because sometimes some of them don't even work. So what you need to do is you need to do a bit of research. You need to understand that it's a spellcaster, that it's light and it's level 4. So straight away, just by knowing those bit of knowledge, what I know of that is it's level 4. So it can actually instigate rank 4 plays if I want it to. It is a Performage, so I can look at the rest of its art type and know what else can work with it. Now, by doing that research, you'll then understand that Performage Damage Juggler actually has 2 brothers. So it'll also have the Damage Juggler Performage Trick Clown, and the other one that is, if you control 2 level 4 monsters, special summon it. So straight away, you then see the synergy that as it keeps going, the idea of these cards is to search each one of them out, is to be able to get rank 4s on the board, and then they're also effect monsters that allow you to revive themselves as well. So you start to understand a little bit more about the art type, what worked well with it. Now, you can always look at stuff like Satellite as well. Now, Satellite have like 7 or maybe more main deck effect monsters. You don't use all 7 of those. Now, you look at the cards like that, you go Deneb. Deneb is your searcher. That is your core component. That is your Overraptor. That is what gets everything going. Altair is the card that brings back from the graveyard. That is usually the card you want to search off from Deneb if you don't already have something like a Vega or a Unicolai in your hand. So then you've got to look at the way they synergize together. Again, just taking Satellites, because they're right in front of me, as an example. Level 4, Light, and Warriors. So, it's a warrior deck. Straight away, I want to put Reinforcement of the Army in because that is another way of getting to it. It's a warrior deck that's level 4, so it means most of my extra deck is going to be rank 4 materials because I want to be able to produce that even more. The idea is that they're going to flood the board with level 4s, they're going to overlay them, they're going to make XYZs. So what other cards can I use that can also allow me to put level 4s on the board? So you look at free special summoning cards, you look at stuff like Instant Fusion that can get me a level 4 warrior from my extra deck. You look at stuff like Sky Striker, Mecha Hornet Drones. It's a warrior monster that can just be special summoned to the board. So there's a lot of ways that you can look into it and go, right, okay, what synergizes well with it, what doesn't. You can look at the Phantom Knight Trap of Shade Brigading. It's a level 4 monster that I can use to make my XYZs as long as I control no traps. So the more research that you filter down through with the decks, before you even touch the Yu-Gi tubers, before you even touch the online one, if you are like, right, I want to build this deck from scratch. Now keep in mind, these decks don't just appear like that. There are individuals out there that specifically teeter over a deck and they put cards together. They could probably even mash it into a 60 card deck and say, right, okay, test hand, test hand, test hand. No, this doesn't work. Right, okay, that card goes out, that card goes out, that card goes out. What am I missing? And you juggle around with it, you test it, you play with it. That's the whole idea. Once you put the deck together, you do need to test it. You do need to get to see how it works. You do need to know how it operates. So research is your main big kind of point of call. Now what I tend to do, and again this is just a little preview of the testing video that I'll do next for you guys if it hits 50 likes, is that I usually tend to play with an unlimited extra deck. Purely because I want to have all my options there. Now obviously I'm not going to go to my locals with an unlimited extra deck, but the idea is that during my testing phase, I don't have any restrictions on myself. So the idea is that I want to test, like, what's my maximum potential? How far can my deck go without any hand traps? Without restriction on my extra deck, do I go through all 15 of my cards? Do I get more use out of a particular card on a consistent basis than the rest? And then you whittle your deck down until you have 15 extra deck cards. Then of course you test again. You go, right, okay, now if I'm going to get hit with a hand trap, when's the worst time for me to get hit with a hand trap? How can I play if I get hit with this particular hand trap? And that's where you do the research on the meta and what's being played. So once you've put your cards or your 40 cards together, you want to make sure that there's a good balance between monsters, spells and traps depending on the type of deck. So again, using Satellite as an example, you will actually notice that the deck is a lot more control based. So on the majority of levels, it doesn't have as many spells as it does traps, purely because the idea is that it's supposed to control your opponent. If it was a combo heavy deck, it would probably have more spells because they're to be played during my turn and my opponent's turn on a quicker basis. It'll probably have more monsters that are full of extenders rather than normal summon monsters that are always going to use up your hand. Because what you don't want to do is you never want to open up your hand of 5 monsters that can only be normal summoned or only give you the ability of normal summoning without any form of extension, because then you're not going to get anywhere. Ending your board on 1 monster is never going to be enough to beat your opponent. So straight away, if that is what you're consistently coming up with, you need to go back to the drawing board, have a look at it and find out why that is happening. Usually it'll be because you have too many monsters in there that require the normal summon. Using Dark Magician as another example for that particular having too many normal summon monsters in a deck, you look at stuff like this. Now most Dark Magician decks only play free Rod. That is your only normal summon monster without requiring a tribute that you are going to be using. That is why there's a lot of clash talk between playing Keeper of Dragon Magic and Magician's Rod, because if you open up both of them in your opening hand, they contradict each other. You want Rod to search out all your spells and traps, but you want Keeper of Dragon Magic with a Dark Magician in hand to get you into your fusion plays. Which one do you go with? So you can actually look at that as well. You need to kind of understand if you're going to go with extenders, if you're going to go with searches, if you're going to go with draw cards. I mean, taking Triss Pendulums, for example. His particular build is based on draw heavy potential. So the idea is that he's going to play his scales, which is all he needs. He doesn't even need to play traps sometimes unless he's playing the Phantom Knight engine. So straight away, his whole deck idea, because of there being pendulums, would be probably a 25 to maybe 15 ratio of pendulum monsters to spells or spells to monsters, purely because that is the route he wants to go. The idea is you want to get a normal summon on board, you want to get your scales in place, you want to pendulum summon as much as you can, you want to special summon from the extra deck. So there's a lot of research you need to do in the type of deck. Straight away, so, for example, if you were to sit down at home and you go, right, what type of deck do I want to play? I like warriors or I like spellcasters. That straight away narrows down your point of call of where you want to look. Now, if you know the difference between combo and control already and you already have a preference, that makes your job a little bit easier as well. If you have no preference whatsoever, again, testing is what's going to be required. Sometimes you'll naturally know if it works for you. If you're kind of like, right, okay, so I've got to remember this combo. So I normal summon this, I special summon this, I overlay this, I detach this, I activate this spell, I search out this trap, I activate the trap going first turn, I then go into this, I link it up to this, and I do that. If you can remember every single step from A to B, fine. Combo deck is probably for you. But if you're trying to do these combos and you're going, right, so I know this, but I don't do that, and I don't like combo just isn't for me, then you want to go for a control deck where it is a little bit more simplified, where you can go, right, okay, control is all about playing more during your opponent's turn than during your turn. So the idea is you want to control your opponent with your traps. You still need to think, but you think on a more strategic basis, being able to go, right, okay, when do I want to use this trap card? When do I want to interact with my opponent? What time do I interact with my opponent that is really going to stump them and slow them down? So that's your difference between control and, of course, your difference between combo as well. Now, there are decks that balance the two quite nicely, so it really depends on what mood you're in and what type of play style you like. Now, a lot of people come off the back of the anime. A lot of people go, right, I really like that monster Blue Eyes White Dragon. I want to build a deck like that. Or I really like that monster Dark Magician. I want to build a deck around that. Luckily, you can do that quite easily. So all you need to do is be able to understand what is encompassed within a Dark Magician deck. What do you need to do? Now, like I said, online, loads of YouTubers out there. There is plenty of skeletons you can find, and then you can build on top of that. There is no one deck that is identically the same that is then identically played the same. So keep that in mind. It all comes down to personal preference. Your side deck might be different. There might be one tech card. And then keep in mind, right, there's always a person out there that will find that one tech card. Cards don't all automatically rocket overnight out of nowhere. They rocket up in price overnight because someone knows something. Someone has found the ability to interrupt the meta. Someone has found the ability that the next set coming out is going to use this card more than any other, and because it hasn't had a print, it's going to be quite expensive. So you do have to keep that in mind, that the reason you do testing, the reason you build decks, the reason you trial it out is purely because you will find stuff that other people don't know about. You'll think of interactions that other people don't know about. Your locals will be different to everyone else's locals. Your events, your players, your side decks, the decks you're going to be facing, it's all going to be different. Your luck on one day could be amazing, on the other day could be terrible. It doesn't mean that your deck is bad, it just means that your luck is not with you. There's a lot of things you need to do in order to put a deck together, and in order to understand the playstyle of it and the playstyle that fits you. Now, with this video, I've tried to encompass as many of you guys out there as I possibly can. Now, my personal advice right now, if you are new to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, start with a structure deck, okay? Start with a structure deck and look at YouTuber videos for that particular structure deck. That way, you're able to already start with the cards pre-built, so you don't have to go everywhere and buy all of the cards as an individual. You're then able to adapt it, you're then able to play it, you're then able to build it. Once you've got that concept in your head of, right, okay, I really like this deck because it's control-based, or I really like this deck because it's combo-based, that's when you can start opening up your horizons and go, right, okay, now where do I go? Now I've got these cards. Keep in mind, there's staple cards in a deck, there's core cards in a deck. Once you've got the staple cards, they can pretty much go in any deck you want. So you're not restricted to a particular type of deck. For example, Salamangrates doesn't have to be a Salamangrate deck. If you're like, you know what, Salamangrates has got a light balance between control and combo, but I want to go full combo. Go for a Cyverse deck. Go for something like Code Talkers. Go, right, okay, I can actually use some of the Cyverse cards that I've got in my deck, and I can adapt that to use it with other stuff. If you go, right, I really like fires, you go, okay, cool, I've got Sunlight Wolf. Sunlight Wolf can actually help you on a lower level recur some of your fire monsters. It also means I can play a small Salamangrate engine, and I can also then adapt it into a Cyverse deck itself as well. You look at Shadows. If you actually bought the Shadow structure deck, you'll be able to go, right, okay, I can play pure Shadows, I can play Shadow with Invoked, I can play Shadow with any type of engine I want because they're getting more support. You could do whatever you want with that deck, but what you're trying to say when you're playing a Shadow deck is you go, right, okay, I like the idea of controlling my opponent with Winder. I like the idea of destroying their cards with Construct. I like the idea of Fusion Summoning. That's all away. You've got the idea of control, destruction, and fusion. So that then opens up your mind. You go, right, okay, I really like fusion monsters. I like the way it works. What other fusion decks can I look into? Fossils, great, let's have a look. Then you do your more research, you're able to build more, you're able to understand more, you're able to put the decks together on a better basis. So that is my personal advice. If you're brand new to the game, that's where you'll go. Now, if you've already got to that point where you've played the structure decks, you've done your thing, you really want to do something else, that's when you can start looking at your own thing. So straight away you can go, right, I really like the idea of Salamangrates, but it's getting a bit boring, it's getting a bit samey. So test it. That's where you can deconstruct the deck. Like, Salamangrates weren't playing Paro right from the start. That was a card that someone's played and gone, right, okay, now we've got Gazelle at 1, what do we replace it with? Someone's actually gone out there and gone, right, okay, what do I replace it with? Paro. Paro works. Next thing they know, everyone else is playing Paro. Now, if they didn't test it, if they didn't have the deck building knowledge, if they didn't think about it, it wouldn't happen. So that's what I'm trying to say, is there's a lot of things that you can actually be an instigator for, in the sense that you can actually help people open up their minds as well. And if you find that little tech that works for you personally, so for example, I like to play the true name in Dark Magician. Not a lot of people do, not a lot of people know about it. but it works for me, and I understand it might not work for other people. A lot of people like to put Dark Magician Girl in the deck. I, right now, would prefer to put Oracle Mana in it, just because I see other interactions for it. So there's always going to be that differentiation between your deck and everyone else's deck, which is why I'm saying you can't just go and net deck off of Yu-Gi-Tubers, use it as a skeleton, use it as a structure. Net deck it, build it, test it, and then go, right, okay, this card doesn't work for me, this card doesn't work for me. Put in my, right, okay, I want to test out these cards, let's see how this works. And it allows you to adapt, it allows you to become more creative, and that's the whole idea behind Yu-Gi-Oh! And you look at the stuff that Joe puts together. Out of nowhere, Joe will go, oh, I've just found this amazing combo. Don't be disheartened if the combo doesn't work. Always look at ways of adapting it. So there's many a times that me and Joe have gone, oh, we've got this great combo. What if we do this, and end on this? And then we'll look at it and we'll go, oh, we can't because this card clashes with it. Or we can't do that. So you look at the Jinzo combo. We went, okay, cool. So this particular combo with the Sacred Beast gets us the meta-relevant Dragoon and Bardiche. But how can we protect our Verti Anaconda in the Jinzo deck from Imperm? And that's where Joe found out, well, if you add one card to this combo, you can actually get a Jinzo on the board before you even get into Verti Anaconda, so it can't get infinite impermanence. And you're like, excellent, great. Something new, something initiative, let's see how it goes. And that's kind of how you get the creative spark when you get going as well. So once you're testing stuff, once you're comboing stuff, when you've built stuff, you've got the structure there to go. So keep in mind, building a deck from scratch is quite difficult. It's not something that I would say straight away, go do, without any guidance, without any backup. It's something that I'd say start with a structure deck, build off of that. Look at a YouTuber video, go, right, okay, I really like that deck, build it online, test it online. Once you've figured out what works for you, you can then go and buy the deck itself. That always allows you to cut out the middleman, and the only thing it leaves for you to do is to physically test it with your friends. And even then, when you're physically testing with your friends, you can always print out proxies and see how it goes as well. Now, this video was a little bit longer. I've tried to, like I said, accompany every individual one of you guys out there in regards to the deck building. I hope this makes sense. If you do have any questions, put them in the comments below. If there is any particular 101 video that you would like to know or you would like to see, put them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to do it for the next video as well. But keep in mind, if this video does get 50 likes, showing your appreciation to this type of video, I will bring you a testing video of once you've built your deck, how do you test it, how do you learn it, how do you make it work? And that's one of the most important things. We're taking you bit by bit, getting you ready for your first tournament or going back to the tournaments after lockdown as well. We've got your side deck, tick. We've built your deck, tick. Now we just need to test it. And that will come in part 3 if this video gets 50 likes. Thank you so much for watching. Dog agrees. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. As absolutely always, guys, stay safe and happy dueling.